All right. Thanks so much. It's great to be here and get a chance to talk with you guys. We have a lot of interns at our company. I think we're almost 50% interns, aren't we? It's kind of fun. I'm a big believer in interns. It's been a lot of fun for us to build companies and having people coming right out of school or even while they're in school at the companies I've built. I wanted to share just a few different things with you today. I thought it would be appropriate to share my last couple companies with you and get a little perspective on that so you can kind of see some of the things I've done and some of the things I'm currently doing, as well as to share with you different things I've learned, little kind of takeaways that I've learned in the world that I think have been of great value to me. They're ways I've built to try to interpret the world. When something frustrated me, I tried to figure out a way to understand it and say, all right, well, what does that really mean to me? So I'll share some of those kind of tidbits with you as well that have really been good guideposts for me throughout my whole career. First thing I want to talk with you about is the company In Moment. I just sold this company off in May of this year, and it had been a 17-year wonder ride. It was awesome. We had about $60 million in recurring revenue at the time we sold the business off. And we've had around 400 employees, 6 offices around the world, and we collected information from 100 plus countries and 100 plus languages. I mean, if you think about it, we collect information from a lot of places. We're a customer experience company. We collected information based upon your experiences you have when you go and buy something or experience something or go to a show or wherever it might be. And we use that information to help businesses improve. To kind of size that, last year, In Moment collected about 150 million customer experience reviews. I'm sure you guys all know Yelp, right? Yelp's like 18 years old. In their 18 years, they've collected about 140 million reviews. So we collected more reviews last year than Yelp has in their lifetime. So kind of interesting from a sizing standpoint. We collect that information for and behalf of a bunch of cool brands and do a bunch of things with it. Forrester thought we were doing some really cool things. They gave us some great marks. You'll see a couple of Utah companies up here with Qualtrics and Merit CX. And they said, yeah, you guys are doing some cool stuff. And it was nice to be able to get a nice nod from the actual analysts out there saying we were doing good things. And we did it for a bunch of really cool brands. We were in around 250,000 storefronts when we sold the business off. So if you're going to eat somewhere, buy something somewhere, make a phone call or reservation, we were the ones that would ask you to share your experience and possibly get a free dessert or free miles or whatever it might be to go through and have you share the experience you had. We then use that information to help guide and steer businesses. So we did a lot of things with a bunch of cool tech, especially towards the end. We were heavily into text analytics for the last 12 or 13 years. And that kind of opened up a new possibility for me in looking at what I wanted to do next and the new company that I want to start. That company is HaloSite. HaloSite is an augmented analytics company for the Salesforce App Exchange. You guys all heard of Salesforce? These guys are huge. 160,000 businesses use Salesforce as their database. It's kind of crazy. It's a lot of businesses. Kind of put in perspective, In Moment had 400 businesses as our customers. They had 160,000. Kind of huge organization. And the App Exchange is really kind of a cool thing. For Salesforce, it's their R&D department, if that makes sense. Instead of funding it themselves, they create a platform where other people could come experiment on their platform. So they pay for our hosting of our app. They give us access to the platform. They give us access to their customers. It's kind of amazing, right? You get access to all this stuff, and you get to focus on that one little thing that's good. In this case, for HaloSite, the best way I can frame this is maybe to tell a little bit of a story. I'm sure you guys have all had this experience where you've gone outside and a dark night where you can kind of see the stars, and you look up, right? And you no longer have your head down in the weeds. You're looking in classrooms and everything else. It's hard to sometimes get perspective on things. Well, I had one of these moments here a few weeks ago. I was up in the mountains back up here, and I looked up, and the Milky Way was just huge. It's kind of far back and out past Timber Lakes, if you know the area. and there's no outside lights, and it could just see the Milky Way, and just kind of get this feeling of this immensity of the space. Kind of makes the whole things around you feel real small at that point in time. Well, what's interesting is the whole business world has been focused on just a few things. And the way we try to map things, right, is something to kind of put things in perspective. These happened a long time ago. You guys recognize a few of those, Thanos and Whammo disk. We went through them and came up with, the constellations to try to give some structure to that sky, right? But if we think about the immensity of information that's there, everyone heard of maybe seen this picture, the Hubble Deep Field? You guys seen this? What's it a picture of? Galaxies, right? Not stars, galaxies. Thousands of galaxies in this little pinhole, right? So I kind of like this zoom out here. So you got this teeny little pinhole that the Hubble focused on for, I don't know, a few weeks or something. And they developed that deep field image. And it's that teeny little spot way back up there. And there are all these galaxies in that little teeny spot. So it begins to kind of get to this immensity of space. Well, when we start looking at the data that is out there, it's kind of interesting that the whole world, the business world, has chosen to focus on just this little tip of the iceberg, right? The structured data. It's where all the dashboards that you see, it's all the metrics that you talk about, it's all those things that people are focused on. They kind of missed the immensity of the data, right? Okay, so great, we're playing with the tip of the iceberg. We kind of missed the iceberg itself. It's all this unstructured data, emails, texts, chats. It's all the big stuff, right? The difference between a metric and what a customer tells you, big difference, right? Metrics are measurements of a past decision, if you think of it that way, right? So someone made a decision 5 years ago, and we're now tracking that decision, and we see our tolerances are off by 13%. I don't know what that means. And that's the interesting thing. But I do know when a third of my customers say, I'd really like you to add the following to product Z. Well, that's pretty directional. And that's the information that's found in your notes, in your case information, all your emails you get from your customers. We have one customer that literally gets over 100,000 emails a month. And they're one of our Lighthouse customers as we're building out our alpha. So the question is, why don't people do this? Why hasn't anybody read these emails or gone in and looked at information? Well, it's kind of hard. And if you think about it, here's a good example. Last night I shot an elephant in my pajamas. How the elephant got in my pajamas, I don't know. And that's the problem, right? It's context. It's the context of things. So here's another example. So simple math problem, right? What's the answer? There's two. Both are legitimate. Is it 1 or is it 16? Depends, right? In other words, sometimes things can be written in such a way that it can be misinterpreted. Both are correct, but it's different, right? Okay, so if you think of the information that we're collecting for this one customer, let me get one more. They get about 1.8 million cases in their help desk each year. If one person were to read each of these cases, 10 seconds per case, plus all the emails, texts, and chats they get corresponding to those cases, it'd take them almost 2.5 years to read them all, just consistently. So why don't people use unstructured data? It's hard. It's really hard. So that's where our friends, in the NLP and text analytics space can come in and help, because there's a lot of great new tools out there, stuff that we've been using now for 13 years, and we're saying, let's apply that to this problem of all the other data that people aren't analyzing. We did it with customer experience data. Now I'm like, hey, let's go through and build this on top of Salesforce so we have direct access to all the unstructured data that a business has. And that's what HaloSite's doing. We've got some cool customers already, a bunch of them you probably recognize from around here. And we're going through and launching our beta here at Dreamforce next week. We've been asked to speak at Dreamforce. We're actually launching our website next week too. I'm still trying to figure that one out. They asked us to speak and we didn't have a website yet. I'm like, did they just forget to check? I don't know how we got selected. So we're actually real excited about that. But for those that are interested, go check us out. We'll be launching next week. We're also having a beta sign up. We're giving a free beta to anybody who, from a business standpoint, who's on Salesforce from January until June of next year. So we've got a 6-month beta we're doing where we're trying to learn. If you understand analytics companies, you need data to be able to learn and tune things. So that's what we're planning on doing for our business. Okay, so those are a little bit about a couple of companies I've been doing here recently. What I'd like to share with you now are kind of the things I've learned in these experiences. So the first company I worked at right out of school, I'd finished my finance degree and my MBA here, and I went to a company called Stern & Wentworth, Bootstrap business, right? They were about $2 million in sales when I joined them. I designed a bunch of products for them, and we grew the business to around $20 million and sold it off. It's pretty cool to be a part of right out of school. Bootstrap, this is a VC-funded company that I was involved with, and wow, crash and burn. It was right during the middle of the dot-com. We raised $20 million of someone else's money and did a successful job in spending it all and bankrupting the company. It's a good experience. In Moment, the Bootstrap company, which we just sold off, and that was a wonderful experience. Had a chance to do some really kind of cool things, and I'll share a few stories in there. And then HaloSite is also bootstrapped. We've got 15 people now with the company, and more than half are going at either no pay or zero pay, or reduced pay. People that have chosen to get ownership in the business to do that. It's kind of fun that way. Get a chance to see some people make some real wealth. Okay, so the question is, VC or bootstrap, what are the differences between them? I'm sure you guys are researching a lot about it, figuring out how to do pitches, to go raise money and everything else. I'm going to get you to think about that. Say, should you do that? Maybe, but let's think about it, maybe doing it yourself for a bit. Because the biggest thing that happens, as soon as you take someone else's money, there's different kinds of pressures. You're spending your own money, you're like, oh, should we do this? Well, I don't know, that's like $100, man. I mean, think about how many lunches I could buy. That's like 100 tacos. So I'm going to be careful with the money. Someone else's money, it's like, $100. You kind of think differently. As soon as you take someone else's money, guess what happens to your culture? It's different. You'd have to manage it differently. It's the reality. You take someone else's money, and what happens to ownership? Well, you're giving them the ownership. That's part of the problem. Or opportunity, as you want to look at it. And, of course, from a control standpoint, if you're going through and raising money, you might be foregoing control. I have a bunch of friends who, that's been a tough lesson for them, where they've lost control of their own business, and here they are making all the sacrifices, yet they're working for somebody else. Now, the reality is some of these businesses can only be started as either a bootstrap or as a VC, because some ideas, nobody believes in you except for yourself, so you have to bootstrap it. Other ideas, like a medical company, man, I mean, it's like 8 years to get these things approved into market. They take a long time. So, the VC company. I need a volunteer from the audience. Someone want to come up here and help me? I have some swag. Come on up. I have some swag I'll give you. What's your name? Lincoln. John, nice meeting you. Come up here. Okay. Get a little close. Okay, good man. Okay, you have an imagination?
Yes.
Good.
Okay.
We're going to use it a little bit here. All right, so we're up in the mountains at this resort.
Okay.
And there's this giant lodge,
Okay.
personal lodge. No, not like for like other people, for the public, but
Okay.
this is a lodge. And it's awesome. It's got a great view out over the valley. It's got an associated toy garage. There's even like barns for like horses and stuff. It's awesome, okay?
Okay.
It sits on the golf course. It's kind of crazy. It's beautiful.
Sounds like Victory Ranch.
It's just beautiful, okay? Here's what I need you to do. I need you to sacrifice your time. Give all your talents. Give me 110%.
Okay.
For the next 3 years.
Okay.
Make all these kind of personal sacrifices,
Okay.
putting the business first. And
Okay.
someday all of that will be mine. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. No, come here. Let me get your pair of socks. Okay. Thank you. All right. So what happens? Sometimes, as entrepreneurs, we can be taken advantage of. We're dreamers. We're hard workers. We get out and do all this stuff, and then suddenly, someone else owns our business, and they're the ones making money off of your back. That kind of sucks. So, let me share a story that happened to a business that I bought. At a moment, this was about, 6, 7 years ago, we bought up one of our competitors, Empathica. And these guys were great. They were from Canada. We'd run into them all the time at shows. we'd put our swag on their, booth and stuff and do silly things and play games with them and stuff. And we ultimately thought one day maybe something would work out between our two companies. We'd be able to do something. And so we kept good, close relations, and then it happened. We had a chance to buy them, and they approached us, and it was really kind of wild. We made a decision in our board meeting to reach out, and I said I'd reach out to their CEO and to talk to him about buying them, because we thought, you know what, it's time, we should buy them. And they had met the previous week and made the same decision. And so when I reached out to him, he's like, oh, that's kind of creepy timing. So we went through the negotiations. We bought them for $42 million. And they were a great add to us, and we were excited about it. While I was sitting down at the celebration meal talking with the CEO, and he kind of opened up to me. He was the founder, CEO of this business for 12 years. How much money do you think someone who starts a business up and sells it for $42 million should make? What's the amount of money they should make? How much? How many say 10 million? Does that seem appropriate? They put all their time and energy into it. More or less? Should they have made more? More than that? Because they made all the sacrifice? Well, what if they only made 5 million? Or 3 million? Or 1 million? Or in his case, 160,000. So why did that happen? By the way, he had a divorce too, so he only made 80. It was so painful. I felt so bad for this guy. He's telling me the story, and I'm like doing marriage therapy, sitting there with this supposed celebration of us buying them. And that's the thing. He'd raised money 4 times. Okay? It's about average, by the way. So he'd raised money, got to the point where he got squeezed out. He needed to make the company worth a whole lot of money for his little share that was remaining to be worth something. And that's kind of the thing that happens, right? We don't hear about these stories. These never make it in the paper. We hear the 1 in 1,000 that end up in the paper. It's kind of sad. It's kind of rough that way. Ever remember when Vivint sold for $2.some-odd billion to whatever the name is, Blackhawk or whatever the name is, Blackstone? I can't remember. Anybody know how many people made money on that venture? How many employees got something? There were 3,000 employees at the time. How many employees do you think made some money on a $2.3 billion sale? It was 9. I know because I hired 2 of them. That's the only reason I knew. I thought it would be like 500 because the way I've always run my business, we want a lot of people to have ownership of the business. I was kind of blown away. So that's kind of the story. So we're celebrating just a few people getting it. So how do you get in a situation where only a few people make it? Well, the difference is in the type of company you start, right? Bootstrap company, a lot of people making personal sacrifices. So for us, our table was my mother-in-law's. It was okay. The chairs didn't match. The desks didn't match. I mean, we had all sorts of crazy things. We just would pick up furniture from places that went out of business and throw it in there. And I think we counted at one point in time, we had like 50 chairs and 35 different types. It was like, wow. We had a lot of variety. And you get to the point where you're like, wow, we're just running out of money becomes part of your business. We had kind of a cool moment, though. There were 10 of us at the time, and we'd taken a little bit of angel money and got into a kind of a bind with them because they went through and gave us 2 payments of the angel money and said, we're not going to give any more because. And I was like, really? We're just about there. We've got this contract with Great Clips. That thing signs, we're off and running. Why do you want to disrupt us? And they're like, well, we want to renegotiate. I'm like, why? Because you see us being successful? And it's pretty much that reason. It's kind of rough. So we had to sit down and make a tough decision. I sat down with each employee and said, well, they're not going to give us any more money, even though we'd already agreed upon terms, and I'd given up about 12% of the company for a few $100,000 to basically fund us, because a bunch of people already gone 6 or 8 months without pay. And so I was like, well, let's see if we can bring some angel money in now, kind of be careful and safe about it with 3 different angels. And they wanted to renegotiate the terms and basically take a larger chunk of the company just when they saw us hitting success. And it was a frustrating moment. I asked each employee individually, do you want to go without pay, or do you want me to go through and take money? Because they're willing to give us the money, they just want to take 3 times as much. They want to take 36% instead of 12. And that was a tough one. So each employee, all 10 of us said, no, I'll go without pay. I don't want to take the money. And that was a really cool moment for me. It was a really cool moment for the company because we had a lot of people. And it was fun for me to go through and look at this and say, I had a heck of a lot more people pay off their homes in a smaller company than in a big one like Vivint. It's kind of cool. I mean, matter of fact, we had about 65, 70 people pay off their mortgages. It's kind of cool. Neat story. All right, so what's the problem with raising money? So if you don't have money, how much money do you spend on payroll? Exactly. Payroll is really low at that point in time. As soon as you get money, what do you start paying? Payroll. So suddenly, I know this seems like totally stupid, but it is really kind of a big deal. If you can figure out how to keep your payroll as close to zero as you can, you don't have to raise a lot of money. You don't have to get money. You can do it in different creative ways. And that's kind of a cool way for other people who don't have money but are an employee of yours to do something different. Remember, entrepreneurs, we really believe we're going to make that jump the first time. We all think it's no problem, got the jump set up, I'm going to hit it, I'm going to nail it. The problem is, you don't hit it the first time. And you have to keep trying. And typically, on average, this guy thinks he's going to make it. He's going to make it. And I'll show it one more time, just because I think it's funny. but literally, it takes like 3 times. And entrepreneurs, we like kill ourselves. I mean, look how hard that hit is. It just makes me just, ugh. But that's kind of what happens. So you have to be able to say, am I willing to go through and do that and make it through that kind of crazy thing, right? The problem is, we go out and we raise money instead because that looks hard. And it does, I get it. And not everybody's in a situation to do that. I'm just going to try to encourage you to try. Set up in your garage, right? Do it that way. Because the first time you go out to ask for money, has anybody here ever done it? Gone out and raised money? So you walk into these firms. I mean, they're like got like this fancy wall paneling, and I mean they're like marble, and it's like fancy music. There's like a scent machine going, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, I'll be honest with you. There's like billions of dollars, and they treat you like so awesome. And when you walk in, they kind of talk like this to you. And I'm like, I feel kind of cool right now, because they like treat you so well. But they know that you're going to have on average 3 to 4 rounds. So this is just the first one. So they're like, yeah, we can treat you cool. Because when you show up the second time for money, they know they've got you. Because you've got, well, what's your payroll, right? You've got payroll now, and you have to make payroll, or you're going to lose the people that are dependent upon it. Instead of coming for a different reason, they came for maybe salary. That's okay. I'm just saying it's, now they go through and you show up to ask for money, and they say, you're kind of screwed. This is really sad. And because I've seen so many friends get to that point where they're like, I got to go raise more money. And I'm like, I feel so sorry for you. And it just sucks. It sucks when you show up. So some of the things that kind of happen is we had 3 angels, 12% of our company, right? Who has control of the company? Did I have control of the company? Or did they have control of the company because they controlled the cash? Isn't that crazy? So I had a payroll I had to make. They chose not to give me payroll. Who's in charge? Cash, right? So that's the thing you need to remember. It's not always about percentage of ownership. If you have a commitment to pay employees and you can't pay it, whoever is giving you money is really in charge. It doesn't matter what their percentage of ownership is. And they'll tell you to do certain things, like hire a person because they say this is what's going to make your company better. And they convince you that it's an awesome thing. So we had to hire a Terry, and I was forced to hire a head of sales that I didn't want. And I couldn't wait until we said no to those angel investors, and we bought them out, and I fired that head of sales. It was a wonderful day to be able to take control. So, a few things, maybe to get you to think about something here. What did you want to be when you grew up? Fireman? Astronaut? An accountant? Think about what you wanted to be when you grew up. I love that commercial. No one wanted, I love the kid who says, I want to claw my way up to middle management. It's like, yeah, right. And yet that is seriously what people end up in business. They're looking at them like, oh, you're excited about that mid-manager position, huh? That happens. People just kind of get lost, and they don't realize that channel, that they're stuck in that career path, and that's where they're going. So I came up with a model because I was frustrated. I call it kings, lords, and serfs, to try to understand the business world. And the first one here, kings or queens, are people who, through little effort of their own, are successful. They're kind of either born into it or fall into it. I think we all have a friend like this. We're like, how did that person become successful? The reality is, the laws of the land don't apply to them, so please take them off your list. The whole pride thing, just sit there and say, it doesn't matter, because there's no explaining it, so don't worry about it. Serfs, well, this is just people that are just working for the man. The key thing I want to point out here is these people don't know the value they create, therefore they don't get the pay they deserve. That's probably the most important line I can give to you today. You need to know the value you're creating for the business you work at, or you'll never get the value you deserve, okay? You'll get the market, right? Market rate. I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure all of you are in school to get better than market. You don't want just the regular supply and demand market. You want to be above market. So how do you do that? Well, one of the ways is taking risks, right? In the old feudal times, people who took a risk would go out and fight, and they come back and they become knights, right? They could change their stars, as it were, to be something different. For me, this happened to me in my first job. I took a risk. I took reduced pay. I got ownership in a business, and right out of school, I was able to go through and have an equity event. It was awesome. Really, just amazing. I'm so appreciative of the example. We did this within a moment. The 10 employees who said, I'll go without pay, those people all had a fantastic 7+ figure event. And they all were appreciative of the fact that they could do that. You can be an employee entrepreneur. I guess the key thing I'm trying to get across here is you don't have to go start your own business to do it. You can be someplace that does it. Like I said, we have a bunch of people. Some of them are interns that are going without pay at our place because they want to gain ownership in the business. Okay, so change your stars. Everyone seen The Knight's Tale? Yeah. Okay, so we'll watch a little clip. Here we go. So, how do you change your stars? How do you go from being a serf to being a lord? You take risks, right? You don't necessarily have to start your own business. You can be an employee entrepreneur. I'm a big fan of this. Everyone hears about the wealth gap that's out there, right? There's people who keep making more money and other ones don't. Well, the formula is really easy. How do you become a CEO? Go start your own company. How do we go through and get rid of the glass ceiling? Go start your own company. It's that easy. Start your own business. And I'd advocate, don't go raise money if you don't have to first off. Try to steer clear of it as long as you can. So if you're going to go out, you're going to be graduating here, you got a great chance. You can go start your own thing. I'm mentoring a few of you already on 3 or 4 businesses right now. So you can go start your own, or you can go through and look at other startups and other businesses and evaluate it as if you were starting your own business. Look at it and say, well, if this was my business, what would I do? And you can do that as an employee entrepreneur. The key things you want to look at is first fit. So does it kind of answer the core questions, which I'll go into here in a second, of what are you good at? The second is, what's your value? So you might be good at something, but the value to the business doesn't line up with it. Small problem, right? You're not going to be able to command much price if you don't know your value relative to the business. Next question is asked, can I be a key employee? Anyone heard of key man insurance? Anyone know what it is? Okay. In small businesses, key man insurance is put out on usually the executive team. Because if one person were to be injured or to die, the business would die. And this is one thing, I actually came up with the concept when I got my first raise. I'd been working my guts off, and I'd been at this company about 1.5 years, and they gave me my first raise, and it was a cola. Anyone know what a cola is? Don't say brown liquid. Cost of living adjustment, right? I got like a 1.3% raise or something. I was so frustrated. And the owner said, you know, I'll give you a better raise when I see the value you're creating. And I said, well, how will you know that? He says, I know it when I see it. And I thought, that is just not going to be left up to chance. So I'll tell you the formula I came up with to do that. So first thing, evaluating fit. There are really, in my opinion, 3 questions that you need to be able to know the answers to before you get out of school, okay? First one is, what do I like doing? Do you guys know what you like doing? Have you experienced enough to truly know? Maybe, maybe not. I find new things every day that I like doing. It's kind of fun. What am I good at? Do you know what you're good at? I was good at spreadsheets. I hate spreadsheets. It's a bad problem, right? I'm good at them, but I can't stand just messing around with them. All those details I don't care for. And then the last question here is, what are people willing to pay me for it? So, in my opinion, if you can go through and get 2 of these to be a yes, that's a great job right out of school. So let's go through this list here. All right, so the first one. Let's say, for example, it's something that you like. What do you call this? You're not really good at it, and people aren't going to pay you a lot of money. What is that? Hobby. That is a hobby. See, starving artist. Well done. Okay, let's say the next one is something you're good at, but you don't like it. So it's like spreadsheets, right? But people aren't willing to pay you a lot of money for it. What is that? That is a job. Welcome. You are a serf. Thank you. The education system has trained you well, and you're a nice new cog in the giant system out there. Your goal is to not be a cog in the system. Your goal is to be above market, right? So that's the last thing you want to do. You're going to school, so you're not that. All right, so let's say, for example, it's something you're good at, and people are willing to pay you money for it. Good money. What's that? That's a good job. You're a high-paid serf, right? So that's good. That's what you want out of school. That's the reason you're here. But there are other options, too. Let's say, for example, it's something you really like, you feel like deep in your bones, and you happen to be good at it. What's that? Yeah, you're following something that makes you content, right? Whether it's a teacher or a volunteer, or a philanthropic, whatever it might be, these people find happiness in life, right? And I think that's important. I have a bunch of friends that literally they're always happy because they're doing good things. So again, you find 2 of them, that's great. What is I already showed it, shoot. Oops. I was going to say if it's something you don't like, you're not good at it, and no one pays you a lot of money. It's a government job. But I found out that during 2009, the government paying jobs actually exceeded public sector jobs, so it's actually this. I think it's kind of funny. Okay, so the last one, if you can have all three, that's what you want as an entrepreneur, right? You want to have all three. Have that panacea, right? Where you go through and say, I love doing this, I'm good at it, and heck, I can get some money for it too. It's cool. All right, so next one, where is your value? If you go get a job and it doesn't line up with your core skills, can you really expect to be paid a lot of money? Say, for example, you're like really good. We'll use spreadsheets example, as spreadsheets, but you're bussing tables over at the pizza oven. Are you going to get paid a lot of money? Probably not, right? That's a simple, silly example, but that should be the way you're evaluating as you go into a job. If you're going to be a commodity to that business, don't expect anything more than commodity prices, okay? It's that simple. So you got to go through and evaluate and say, well, what are my core skills? And if I can use my core skills in a job, I know I can do a great return on investment for the business in me. That's how I got my raise the second year at the company I went at Sterling Wentworth. I went in and showed them all the things I was doing and why. Because my core values, right? If you're doing a lot of unrelated skill things, you may be bad at certain things they're asking you to do. You may be actually costing the business money because you're just not good at it, right? Instead, you want to figure out what sister skills are that are associated with your core skills. So you might know what you're good at right now, but what I challenge you to figure out is what things would leverage alongside with the skills you already have, right? So you're good at Python. Well, what else are you good at? Everyone's good at Python. What else are you good at? Well, do you know how to do analytics? If so, I'm hiring. That's actually a real thing. Because you look for people that have multi-skills, right? That help and leverage each other. Okay, the next one here I want to talk about is what I call the steps of kinas. Step one here, learn something of value that no one knows, okay? This is when I was challenged, my boss, when he first gave me a COLA. He said he'd know it when he'd see it. And I said, I want to figure out what that means. And that first step to me, you're valuable because of scarcity. You know something no one else knows. I also kind of call it the Gollum stage, my precious. Inside the company, there's one person who knows how to print on the printer. Are they important? Well, yeah, for printing, but figure out something else, right? So the most important thing about learning that step, getting to step one, is quickly moving on to step two, which is teaching that one thing to somebody else. Because now guess what? You're free to go learn another new thing. That's how you become valuable to a business. Constantly be going through and being that person that finds those key things, right? Next thing is to think outside the box. Go beyond just the kind of status quo of your job. Your job might be to do X, Y, Z. But if you can think about, hey, how can I help the business make more money? How can I help the business reduce costs? Well, no one's asking you to do it, but come up with an idea. Figure out a way to do that. Now you're key because you're an innovator. And lastly, is to teach others in your business to do the same thing, to get other people to see beyond what they're doing. Now you're a leader, right? So those are my 4 steps of keenness I give to you. I use them every day. It's part of our culture, our company. Leadership and values. When you guys are going out, how many of you guys have gone out and interviewed for internships? Had a chance to do that? Okay. So listen to the way they talk about that particular job or company and the way employees talk about it. This is an important thing. People that work there, listen to the way they talk about it. Do they talk about it as this is my job, or do they talk about it as this is my company? Tyler, can I pick on you? Remember when you worked at Melaleuca?
Sure do.
Was that a job?
Yeah.
That's enough.
Yeah.
So Tyler is working for us as an intern at Halosite. You enjoying it?
I love it.
Okay. Amazing. And that's what you want to hear, right? You want to hear that. I'll give you a pair of socks afterwards. But you want to have people that love it, right? You want to have that kind of experience where people are talking about my company and look what we do at my company. That's what you want to hear from other places. That's the kind of place you want to choose, not a place that has jobs, right? A place that has experiences. Next story I want to share with you is kind of similar to some of the background we're talking about with Vivint. I call it swimming with gold. You're on a boat. You're half mile from shore. You're alone. The boat is sinking. and there's 90 pounds of gold on the boat. What are the chances you can swim it to shore? Yeah, you're probably going to die trying, right? Well, good news, I'm going to give you 5 friends. So you're on the boat with 5 friends. Now each of you only have to carry 15 pounds of gold on your back and swim it to shore. It's a half mile. What are your chances? Probably a little better, right? Yeah, you got a chance. It's 15 pounds. I carry around 15 extra pounds, although it's kind of buoyant. But you get the idea. Well, something kind of amazing happens as you guys make it to shore. Through a lot of hard effort and work, when you land on shore, you don't have 90 pounds anymore. It's kind of a loaves and fishes thing. When you're willing to share the value of your company with your employees, make them employee entrepreneurs, you end up with hundreds of pounds of gold instead. That's the kind of cool thing that happens. So be willing to share. You guys go out and create a business, don't be stingy. Make other people that are doing the work participate in the value of your company. That's the way it should be. Okay, so what to expect. You're going to go out there, you're going to go through and try to find a job. How are you going to approach this thing? I'm going to share a story with you regarding entrepreneurs called the parable of the great sea captain. Anyone heard this parable? So I don't share it too. Okay. So there was once a great sea captain whose fame was known throughout the sea. Like in every single naval conflict, the great sea captain won. Now, as the story goes, as soon as an enemy ship would be spotted, the great sea captain would turn to his first mate. Where's my first mate? There he is. I'd turn to his first mate, and he'd say to his first mate, fetch me my red shirt. First mate would go off and get the red shirt. Captain would put the red shirt on. They'd go into battle, and they'd win. Kind of cool. One thing he didn't share with his men was the reason he was wearing the red shirt. He didn't want his men to see him bleed. He was trying to be a leader, right? Well, one day, an armada of enemy ships was spotted on the horizon. All the men looked over at the great sea captain. The great sea captain turned to his first mate, and he said, fresh me my brown pants. Sometimes that's the way it is. You don't want to see him scared. Yeah, sometimes it's super scary being an entrepreneur. And you don't want to let them see you sweat, as it were. Sometimes that's what you have to do. Take the risks, be willing to go through it and deal with it. Violent execution. This is a quote from Patton. More progress results from the violent execution of an imperfect plan than the perfection of a plan to violently execute. Analysis paralysis happens to entrepreneurs way too frequently. They cycle until they've run out of money. Better to just violently execute an imperfect plan. Get there. Get something working. Doesn't matter what it is. And then you can go through and improve it and cycle again. But don't go through and just be stuck in analysis paralysis. I love this saying, violent execution. Okay, so here we are at the end. The question is, what are your choices? What are you going to do? You're going to get a chance to rewrite who you are. You're going to go out and be a serf. You're going to change the rules. Do you know the value you're creating when you go in there, begin your interview? This is the video I'll share with you to get you to think about it.
You have been weighed. You have been measured.
And you absolutely
Have been found wanting. Welcome to the new world. God save you if it is right that you should do so.
So, my challenge to each one of you, go do it. Go be an employee entrepreneur, or go be an entrepreneur. And go in eyes open to the places you go to work. Know the value you create. Use some good standard tests of what you're doing. Know what you like and what you don't like and what people are willing to pay you for it. Thank you very much.